as an entrepreneur, it can be really hard to know what steps to take, what strategies to make. I'm so excited to introduce you to one of the authors in one of our books, Unstoppable. This book has unstoppable stories from women who have gone through challenges and just kept on going. I'm going to introduce you to Diana Howles in just a second. We'll be right back. I don't know about you, but when I first became an entrepreneur, I thought it was going to be easy. I had no idea how challenging it was going to be. All the different things I was going to learn, the different people I was going to need to meet in order to help me to get there. It was the strategies that I was really missing. And what we're going to be talking about today is strategies. Before I bring up our guest, Diana Howles, we'll talk a little bit about the book, Unstoppable Female Entrepreneurs Living Fearlessly. Go get your copy of the book at actiontakerspublishing.com/unstoppable. Again, that's actiontakerspublishing.com/unstoppable, where you're going to read stories from female entrepreneurs who have gone through a lot of challenges in their lives, in their entrepreneurial journeys, and how they've made it through that. With that said, I'm going to bring up our guest, Diana Howles. Diana, I'm so excited to have you here today and learn some of these strategies you got hidden up your sleeve. How's everything going?
Thank you so much for having me. Great to be here, Linda.
Oh, you're welcome. I love this because, before I knew about entrepreneurial success, or even knew what an entrepreneur was, I was an employee for 36 years. So I didn't really know what an entrepreneur was. I never even heard the word, let alone knowing what it was. And so when I jumped out of the corporate world and into entrepreneurship, I thought, oh, this is going to be so easy.
Yeah.
And the little chuckle, right? Because it's not.
It's not.
Yeah. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey of first of all, of becoming an entrepreneur? And then we're going to tease with just a little bit. You have 5 success strategies for us, but we're going to share just one of them today. You'll have to get the book to get the other 4 strategies. So share with us your journey. Like, how did you become an entrepreneur? How did this all come about?
Yeah, and I talk about this in the book too, but definitely I liken an entrepreneur's journey or a solopreneur's journey to sort of running hurdles on a track, because there are barriers and there are obstacles always. And so really for me, it was about learning how to meet those head on, look for solutions, find a way around, above, below, just to keep moving forward, right? Take that next step. So, one of the things that happened for me is I had a life change in an employer relationship that I had, where we had an entire department laid off. My entire department was about 50 staff. And all of a sudden I was unemployed. And it was my husband who said, what if we start a business from scratch? And that was, 17 years ago. So it really was, sometimes it takes this sort of catalyst in your life to really be the launch. And for us, it was really looking for what can we do instead of what can't we do?
How was that? Like him saying that, what was your first immediate reaction? Was like, yeah, let's do it. Or did you have any trepidation to it?
Oh, the latter for sure. So Initially I had a toddler at home. So I liked the idea at the time. So I liked the idea of having more flexibility for sure. But yes, lots of trepidation. How are we going to staff this? Is it going to pay the bills? How are we going to do the technical side? All of that was new to us. But you jump in and you learn and you find people to help you. There's always helpers in the world, right? So look for those helpers and resources, leveraging resources, and a lot of trial and error, right? As many of you know who are listening, our listeners too have probably experienced this. But really, I think for me, what's most important for entrepreneurs to know is being able to pick yourself up and take that next step, right? So that we can keep moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. I like to say, if you haven't failed, that means you haven't tried. And I might have got that from somebody else. And if I did, I don't know. I apologize. I don't know who it was, but I love to say that because the more I try, the more I fail.
Yeah, and
So,
really
yeah,
reframing failure differently too, right?
it's
So
learning. Yeah, the more
that
I
didn't
fail, the
work.
more I learn. Yeah.
Exactly. It didn't work. I can't do that anymore, or I got to do it differently. How can I do it differently? Try it again. Yeah, exactly. It's all of those life lesson learns, and some of those entrepreneurial lessons are applicable to just our lives in general as well.
Yeah, definitely. Now, what's it like working with your husband?
Oh, it's good. So we have different specialty areas, and then we can run things by each other as well. So he'll ask for my feedback on something he's working on with a description or a webinar, and I'll ask for his expertise on looking over a contract and consulting. And so it is being able to see where each other's strengths are, and then
Mhm.
also leveraging other resources too. So we work a lot with outsourcing and have over the years as well when needed. So being able to expand in that way is really helpful too for entrepreneurs. I think as women too, we feel like we need to do it all, and we don't. We grow.
Mm.
We can outsource some of those other duties that can help us spend time on where our expertise lies. So I think really some of the strategy around that is helpful as well.
Now, with your husband, what was he doing before you guys started House Associates?
Yeah, so he worked at the university in our state. We're in the Midwest in the U.S., and so he worked in education and instructional technology, so more
Mhm.
the academic side. And I am a trainer, learning designer, consultant, presenter. So I was doing sort of the learning, professional learning field in the corporate arena. So we kind of bring together the academia side with a lot of evidence-based research, and then the corporate side together. So it's a good blend.
That's awesome. Yeah, my husband's not interested at all in what I do.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
he's like, "Okay, looks like you're having fun."
Yeah.
As long as I'm having fun, he's good with it.
Awesome.
Which
That's
is good.
awesome.
He's a great support just in a different way. And
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
important for us to have that support. So let's talk a little bit about that, having support in our corner. Maybe like let's say I was single and I didn't have that support in my
Right.
home. So how am I going to find that support? What do you recommend for people to do to find the supportive people? Like you mentioned, reach out to people. There are a lot of people who are helpers. How do you find the right people? Because that is the
Yeah.
key. You can find people that give you bad advice, but how do you find the right people?
That's right. And always trusting your gut in that too, but definitely important to do. So there are trade associations. So based on whatever your niche is for your business, find that professional trade association, join, be a member, get involved, right? You get to network and grow and get to know people that are doing the same thing that you are. But also I have I talk about this in the book too. I have kind of a personal group of advisors, and I run things by them. Occasionally you do that personally as a woman. I think that's very supportive, and it is important, I think, to have a woman group of advisors, because some of those issues that we deal with are very different, and some of the topics that we talk about with women being in the workplace aren't really discussed maybe as deeply as they would be in a group of all women. And so that support can be helpful too. So many different ways that you can network with others, build your network. Nowadays too, we also have the digital platforms as another way of networking, but
Mm.
still the old fashioned way of being able to get together, look each other in the eye, which apparently releases oxytocin, right? Which is a good feel chemical. That's still so valuable. So when we can be able to get together with people in person as well.
I haven't heard that. So why don't you talk a little bit about you said the oxytocin release and seeing people in person. I haven't heard about that. So
It's
tell us a
something
little bit about it.
Yeah, it's something about just looking people in the eye in person. So that eye to eye contact, it's so meaningful to be able to have a really good, deep, rich, intimate conversation with somebody in person. And, there's so much that the virtual platforms can give us, which I'm a virtual person. That's what we do. We coach people on camera work. We coach them with virtual presentations. I teach virtual training. So we do a lot of virtual, but still, I personally have experienced, and I'm sure our listeners and viewers have too, the valuable right exchange of being able to look people in the eye, have a one-on-one conversation, and be in person. So I'm just saying, to make sure that that's part of your life as well, in addition to all of the digital affordances we have today.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I remember hearing about, COVID, and especially for young children, because they, when
Yeah,
you're younger, you haven't really experienced what it's like to be around other people as much, especially when you're really young and maybe you're spending time with family, but not as
right.
much time with other types of personalities. And like those young children really missed out on those, 3 years of
Mm,
those like personal contacts, being able to really play with other kids and
yeah.
have those like you say, like eye to eye contact or whatever it is. And so, I mean, this is like, I don't know if this is any of your expertise at all, but let's talk about it anyway. Is like, what's your thought? Like, I have my own thoughts and I'll share mine too, but I'd love to hear
Mhm.
your thoughts on like, how will COVID affect young children? Do you have any thoughts on it? We're both speaking not as children, like I myself, I'm not a psychologist or anything
Yeah,
of that. Like, I'm
no.
going to share my own opinion. Okay. So
Right.
what about you, Diana?
Yeah, well, we do know, right? We know the value of having that interpersonal interaction. So thankfully, those children were near their, I'm assuming their guardians, their parents, hopefully maybe siblings too. So there was some of that, right? But I think what we need to work on as a society is helping them if there were any fears launched in those young children when they were little. I'm
Oh
thinking
yeah.
maybe fears about germs. So it could be or illness or any of that. Like that's what I think we need to come alongside them as they grow up, right? And make sure that they have the support and guidance that they need to kind of work through that. Because I'm thinking, it's foundational when you're that young, right?
Yeah.
And so that's something that I am concerned about. But yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I have similar concerns, and for me it's a matter of them like just learning how to play with others, or how to collaborate, because collaboration happens when you're in school as a
Yeah.
young child, and because I love collaboration, it's one of my favorite things. And
Hmm.
so really thinking along the lines of like, how will this affect their future? I think it all depends on in the household, like how does the household operate? If the household operates in a like, go to your room, be quiet, I don't want to hear from you, then there's a lot of isolation that's happening.
Mm,
So they haven't learned how to connect and communicate and collaborate with other people, even
yeah.
if it is just family. So really, it's going to run the gamut, and it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's one of those unfortunate things that happened, during our time while we're alive,
Right.
and we'll see the ramifications or whatever, comes from it.
Yeah. I think, and this is kind of what we're talking about too, right, Linda, with the entrepreneurship that there's
Mhm.
sometimes many barriers. We talked about that, and obstacles, and this pandemic certainly was a huge obstacle for
Yeah.
the whole world. I know a neighbor of mine, her daughter got accepted into a ballet school and was going to go be a ballerina, and then the pandemic happened, and she didn't go to the
Mhm.
ballerina school, but now she found a different trajectory, and she's looking at medical school, right? So sometimes there's different opportunities that can present themselves. And I think part of the lesson that we talk about too in the book is this idea of being able to see what's happening, um, accept what is, but it doesn't mean we don't take action, right?
Mhm.
And be able to pivot as needed and grieve if we need to because we're maybe
Yeah.
attached to what we wanted to do, and then be able to look for a different direction, right? Again, what I like to talk about is if a barrier or obstacle shows up, pandemic hits, what can I do instead of what can't I do?
Yeah, a lot of different ideas came from the pandemic. A lot of different companies were formed because of the pandemic. And so it is about shifting. And that was like, those were entrepreneurial shifts that had to happen. So thanks
Yeah.
for bringing me back to the topic.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
because it's just an interesting, topic really to talk about,
Yeah.
including the pandemic in the conversations. So we're talking to one of the authors of Unstoppable Female Entrepreneurs Living Fearlessly. You can get your copy of the book by going to actiontakerspublishing.com/unstoppable. While you're over there, you'll also see free gifts from our authors. Go cash in on those free gifts talk to our authors, connect with them. So Diana, your chapter in the book is titled Seasoned Strategies for Entrepreneurial Success. Why don't you share with us? I know there's 5 strategies in there. You want to share one of the strategies, and remember, go get your copy of the book so you can find out the other strategies. Let's talk about that.
Sure. So one of my strategies is to narrow your niche. So I think a lot of times when we come out and we start a business and we want to do everything, and maybe it's because we love everything and it's hard for us to narrow what our specialty is. So we say we're going to do this and we'll do that and we'll do that and we'll do that. Maybe we bring on other contractors or employees and then all of a sudden we're really broad. But what can happen is our customers, potential customers, look at us and say, well, how can they be good in all of those things? What's really their expertise? And so I think a lot of times we make those mistakes. I made that mistake starting my business. We tried to do too much. And so over the years, right, you learn the hard way, we need to pick a niche and have a specialty. So now we focus on all things virtual and love it. So a lot of virtual training and virtual presentations where we coach and work with clients. So that would be one of my strategies. But yes, get your book today. It is just so inspiring, so motivating. You'll love reading all the stories of all these fabulous women. And then you can find out the other strategies as well.
Yeah, definitely. Again, go to actiontakerspublishing.com/unstoppable to get your copy of the book and those free gifts. You can connect with Diana at howlesassociates.com, and that's HOWLES associates.com. And so I wanted to talk just briefly, because when I left the corporate world and I jumped into entrepreneurship, I didn't have any idea what I was going to do, who I was going to serve, how I was going to make any money. I had zero idea. I just knew
Yeah.
one thing. I didn't want to do anymore what I was doing, so that was kind of my thing. And so I just wrote down 3 of the different things that I did of the 7. So you talked about niching down. When I first became an entrepreneur, there were 7 things I wanted to do and nobody could tell me I couldn't do them all.
Yeah.
So one of them is I decided I was going to do destination events. And so I started something called Brawn for Brains. And so it was the Brawn was this athletes were going to raise money for a charity, right? So that was Brawn for Brains.
Nice.
And then I came up with the Lemon Zest and Garlic Fest event, which is an amazing event. We got rained out that day, but
Sounds fun. Yeah.
it was such a fun, thing to put together. And then I started a mastermind, a women's mastermind, for
Ooh.
businesses. That was
Yeah.
only 3 of the 7. And I quickly learned, well, I say quickly, for me, it was quickly. It was about a year. Then I learned that I need to get rid of one and get rid of the next, and then finally figure out what the one thing is. And it's interesting because going into book publishing, that was not one of my 7. And that was actually several years into it that I did the first book. And so
Wow.
kind of like talking about, when we start something, we don't always know where it's going to take us. There were
Right.
different obstacles that came along the way that taught me different things, that connected me with different people, that, it's like everything kept on like moving towards what I'm doing today.
Yes.
But if I hadn't done those 7 things, I
That's
might not be
right.
doing what I'm doing today.
That's right. That's what I was
Yeah.
thinking too. Like those 7 things helped bring you to that point, right? And so I knew somebody who was looking for colleges and they looked at like maybe 8 or 9 colleges too. And ultimately the one that the person attended in the end was not in that initial 9. So sometimes it emerges, right? As you take that journey and take that next step.
Yeah, definitely. But you got to take that first step. You
You
just
do.
got to take it. So
Yeah.
if somebody's sitting there, Diana, and they're like, you know what, I want to start a business, but I don't really know what to do, what my first step
Mhm.
should be. What's
Yeah.
your advice to that person?
I think having a clear goal, right? If you kind of sometimes work backwards. So, what do you love to do? Because you want to do what you love what you do. So, figuring that out. And then, so if it's law, if it's consulting, if it's business, if it's multimedia, whatever that is, then do your research in the field, find people in that business and ask a lot of questions. You can do interviews, you can pay for their lunch, pay for their coffee, ask to meet them. So you're kind of right doing your research to figure out, is this really what I want to do? And then once you make that commitment, then you can leverage the resources and make it happen. And sometimes what's helpful to do, what I like to do, is write down your action items like the night before and keep them to just a minimum, like 5 to 6 that you know for sure you're going to do tomorrow. But you do them the night before and then you order them. I'm going to do this first, second, third, fourth, fifth. Then in the morning, you wake up and you're ready to go. You don't have to think about what do I have to do first, or I don't want to do that one. You just do it, right? Make it
Mhm.
happen. But yes, you have to keep moving forward and make sure that you commit to it once you decide this is what I want to do.
Yeah. How important is having that clarity?
I would say really important, at least for me. Everyone has to find out what's important for them. But for me, if that goal is super duper clear and it's measurable, like I can look at that next year and say, did I meet that goal? Um, then that just helps make it more rewarding and it gives you more clarity to make sure it happens. Mhm.
Yeah, I love setting goals. I set what I call Smurfed goals
Oh,
instead of
instead of
SMART
smart
goals.
goals.
Yeah, so that's what specific, measurable, attainable, relatable, I think, and I don't remember what the T is. Oh, time bound. So
Oh,
my
yeah, yeah.
yeah, I
Those are
replaced
fun.
the A, which is attainable. I replaced it with U, which is unattainable. And
Oh,
the reason I do this is because I am typically, like, my history is that I will stop short of my goal. So
oh,
if I
when you
make
get
it
close.
unattainable, I go past what goal I wanted to hit, and I will always surpass that goal, but I never reach my goals because
Mm.
they're extremely unattainable.
Oh, they're super hot. Yeah, I
Yeah.
see.
Yeah, and so
Mhm.
but for me, that keeps me motivated. Now some people can't do that because I don't feel like a failure if I don't hit them. I already know I'm not gonna hit them.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a mindset shift for you. Yeah.
Huge. Oh
For
my
maybe for somebody who really wants to be able to check off that goal, they could take that, big goal and then break it down
Yeah.
into smaller ones, right? And then they could dissect those and then hit the smaller goals. If you're
Yeah.
somebody who wants to check off that you've done it all the way.
Yeah. Well, so this year I have, 2024, we're recording this in, January of 2024. My goal, there's very specific. I'm going to connect with 20 influencers or people who are community
That's
leaders.
specific. Yes.
Yeah, very specific, right? To put together their own collaboration books. So that's that goal.
Oh,
And then I
yeah.
also have another, and that is to sign up with 5 celebrities to publish their books. So I have two very specific goals,
Yeah.
and they might actually be attainable, but
They sound like it to me. You have 12 months, right? And you have connections to leverage, and now you've broadcasted it through this interview too, so people that hear this who might know people
right.
might connect back to you. So sometimes, as you know, Jack Canfield talks about announcing or sharing your goals with others too, because then sometimes they can help make it happen. So I would say you're on your way.
I am. I'm so excited about it. Well, I connected with 56 celebrities yesterday.
Did
And
you?
so, yeah, so now I just need the 5 of them, right?
That's right.
So that was one thing is like, speaking about that just briefly, is that, we have to put ourselves in proximity to
Yeah.
those or the ones that we want to serve, or, the people, like, if I'm very specific on my goals. And so what did I do? I put myself into an area where I
Yeah.
will connect with those. Like, I have their email addresses and phone numbers, every single one of them, and they all said reach
Mm,
out to me next week. So
amazing. There you
right,
go.
right.
Yeah.
And so I might surpass my goal of 5 in the first month.
Yeah.
But it was through proximity. So we're kind of short on time, but I just want to let's talk about proximity. Because, again, you're talking about finding those people in your life that can support you, that can help you, that can guide you. How
Mm.
important is it for us or how do we find the proximity that we should be in?
Yeah. Do you mean with like a people network?
Yeah. Like finding that right network of people.
Yeah. I think, for me, it's important to be in my field. So I'm in the learning professional training field. So I go to lots of conferences. Last year, I think I went to 9 different conferences. Some of those were online, but I am networking with the professionals in my field that practice, right, the same thing that I do in terms of practitioners. But I also think it's important to challenge yourself. So if you desire to be, let's say, like a professional keynote speaker and you are not yet a keynote speaker, I would network with people who are, right? So you start You befriend them, you build relationships, you connect with them, you learn what they like about being a keynote, what maybe they don't. And then you can learn from them. How did you get started? And so all of that is important, I think. So again, you have to be clear on your goal, and then that drives your actions that you
Mm-hmm.
take bring it to fruition.
Awesome. I love that. It's really getting clear on that so you know who to surround yourself with. Because if it's not working, then maybe you're just not with the right people. And that doesn't mean that they're the wrong people. It just means you're not with the right people, you know?
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
so
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So with that said, Diana, like people can reach out to you again at howlesassociates.com. And what is it that what's your number one thing that you want to help people with today? Like this interview here, what's the number one thing you want them to take away from today?
I think the most important thing I'd like them to know is that, when you want to start a business, especially for women, um, there are so many different places that you can go and you can be overwhelmed and paralyzed. So it's really just deciding internally, I'm going to do this. Once you make that commitment, then action will follow. But you just have to commit first, and then execution is what will naturally happen because you'll be so driven and you want it, and you've already made that commitment to make this happen.
Yeah, I love that because making commitment is so extremely important. Of course, at Action Takers Publishing, we're all about
Yeah,
taking that action,
right,
right? But you have to be committed to make that actions.
right.
Diana, thanks so much for being part of this book, Unstoppable. Again, you can get your copy of the book by going to actiontakerspublishing.com. And then please connect with Diana at howlesassociates.com. Get that book, find the other four strategies. She gave us one of her 5 strategies. Go get the book to find the other of the 5 strategies. And Diana, thank you so much for being here and being part of what we're doing here at Action Takers Publishing.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Debbie Allen, and I just had an amazing opportunity working with Linda. She really knows publishing, and this is a big thing coming from me because I've written now 10 books. She helped me with my 10th book. I've been working with major publishers and had all kinds of amazing opportunities, but I wanted to get this book done fast, and I wanted to work with somebody that could publish it for me, do a hybrid publishing. And I just thought, okay, I'll take a chance on Linda, let's get it done. And she walked me through this process so easily. It was such a joy. And here is the big deal. I have been a professional expert in marketing and books for over 20 years, and I learned a lot from Linda. She gave me some great marketing ideas I never even thought of. My book was timely. In fact, it was a month early, and we even made Amazon bestseller before our launch. I can't tell you that she's just an amazing person to work with. She follows up. She gives you more than that you expect you're going to get, and you will get a really high quality product, and you'll have a really great time working with Linda. She's a true professional.